Welcome to the Licensed to Live show, where professionals, doctors, champions, VIPs, attorneys, and those in public office discover strategies that help you restart and gain what is lost when you find yourself accused. If another has doubted your integrity, questioned your credentials, or caused your actions to come under scrutiny, you are in the right place. On the other hand, if you have never felt the knot in the pit of your stomach when legal papers are served, the heartbreak of disappointing your family when the lock clicks shut on handcuffs, or had to appear before a board of review, then be aware, the longer you serve, the more likely you are to find yourself under the microscope of those who judge. Prepare yourself for this uncomfortable possibility. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jarrett Patton.
Now we will be welcoming to the stage someone that I've had a chance to meet over the years and has a truly incredible story. Now, we left him as an unannounced speaker on this show because I was excited to introduce what this may mean to you. Now, I teased you earlier, and we're going to get into all of these things as we talk about this, as far as understanding what it means to, never graduate high school, go on and do something as complicated as physics. Never went to law school and had an incredible career as an attorney. And also what it means to have a successful career and be a successful person and understanding what success is all about. And so today we have one, you just wait I can't wait to get in our discussion today, Dr. Harris, because the 12 Universal Laws of Success is a book, if you haven't read, you really need to read, because it will get your mind to understand what success is all about. And you're going to hear from someone that never graduated high school, went on to have a career in physics, never went to law school, went on to pass the bar and practice as an attorney, gone on to do things in the music business. And if this one thing that this man knows, it is about success. So I want to welcome to the stage of Licensed to Live on the Licensed to Live podcast, Dr. Herbert Harris.
Hey, this is Dr. Jarrett Patton. Do you need more positivity in your life? No matter what part of your life you want to transform, positive affirmations can help you achieve your goals. But sometimes making permanent changes can be difficult. Designed with you in mind, Licensed to Live, daily affirmations to rebuild your life will inspire and equip you to become the best version of yourself. Licensed to Live, daily affirmations to rebuild your life will set you on the path to changing your mindset, beliefs, speech, and ultimately your actions. You can change your life now by getting your copy at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your finer book retails, or licensedtolive.com. That's licensedtolive.com.
Something smells good. EH3 coffee. EH3 coffee. Premium organic. Nothing better than waking up. EH3 in your cup. Premium organic. EH3 coffee. Nothing better than in the middle of your day. EH3 coffee. Premium organic. EH3 coffee.
Hey guys, this is Janae Noonan, and I'm here with Dr. Jarrett on Licensed to Live. Hit the subscribe, follow the journey, let's go.
As you were talking about the publishing aspect, I don't think I ever shared with you that book publishing was the thing that took us to a whole nother level in every regard. And we've done it both ways. Our first book was published with a big author. Our first book, we had an agent, and an agent is good, okay? You just have to find one who'll take the time with you. And when I was in college, one of my friends became an agent, but he had a company that eventually became Cliff's Notes. And in the early days, I was one of the early writers. The preliminary company was called It'll Come to Me. But anyway, he had experience. When I was in college, I was a self-taught person. And so I wrote notes. I went to Columbia, coming from the South, a segregated school, to an Ivy League college where you had 700 students and only 5 were Black, and only 2 of us graduated.
Wow.
And about half of the class was from the Bronx High School of Science and some of the top schools in the New York area.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to master the art of studying. Arthur saw the way I took notes. I had a note-taking system because I'd been always a self-taught person. He then took the notes, typed them up, and it became what they call a pony. And it was just for the classes at Columbia, but these ponies were hot. They sold in the bookstores, and that gave us a whole nother life as a writer. So we made money before we understood what it was all about.
See, that's how to do it. I mean, honestly, and you are one. Like you said, you were a self-taught man. You've self-taught yourself multiple things, and have been able to do it. And again, you've heard it from Dr. Harris. Hey, having an agent is great if you can find one and help launch your career as an author, which is fantastic.
And now I'll share another back end story that our first book was How to Make Money in Music. And this book was published in 1978, Arco Prentice Hall, and we got an advance. And see, that's the one thing when you get an agent, you should get an advance. If you don't get an advance, you didn't need the agent. Let's put it like that.
Okay. Right.
Okay. But we got an advance, and we learned 2 valuable lessons. One lesson was that we got an advance based on an outline and 3 chapters. And the other lesson we learned was don't let perfection keep you from completion.
Yeah. Can you say that again, Dr. Harris? Can you please say that again?
Yes. Don't let perfection keep you from completion.
Yeah.
And I'll give a little story. We'd gotten our advance in March, and with the next half of the advance didn't come until we turned the final manuscript in. It's right around Thanksgiving, and what we learned that there's like a 2-week time lag between the time you close and the time you get the check. And we're struggling to write this final chapter, this chapter that holds everything together. And we spent at least 2 weeks trying to write this chapter and trying to make it better. So by December 10th, we're looking like, hey, Christmas is coming. And then we had an epiphany. And the epiphany was this: the book is finished. We wrote it. We're the authority. We don't need anybody else to tell us it's finished. It's finished. It's finished by definition. We closed it up, put it in the envelope, delivered it to the publisher, and got our check 2 weeks later. So that's a powerful piece. The other side is this, that the 12 universal laws of success were initially after I couldn't get an agent. And then when I got one, that the agent was not honest. And so I rushed to publish it myself because I was afraid that the agent had copies and might steal it. And so integrity is critical in this industry.
Yes.
And so we took the book and published it. We rushed it out as a self-published book. We took a little course in self-publishing. You know? And one of the things, once you get into the book business, it doesn't matter whether you're published by a big publisher or whether you are, that we then, after we published it, we went to the Book Expo in Chicago and we made contacts. Okay? And as a result of those contacts, number one, Amazon was just getting started. So we were one of the early books on Amazon. Okay? That was number one. Number two, we learned that you as a author can cut deals directly with distributors. You don't need to go through a publisher. If your books are selling, they'll handle your books. The wholesalers, the Ingram and the other big wholesalers, they get paid. And so if you get on out there and make it happen. So we published it ourselves. The book rolled. We sold about 25,000 copies. Another lesson was this. We thought we were failures. 25,000 copies. I want to be a million seller. We thought we were failures. But what we learned was for a nonfiction book, 25,000 copies was great.
Yes. Right. We have to pause there because people don't always get that or understand that and say, well, I don't know, am I going to sell 10 copies? Am I going to sell 2 million copies? You know what? Especially as you're coming up in author, a nonfiction book that, is not going to make it to necessarily the Oprah's list or something like that. 25,000 books is a lot of copies. So hats off to that. But I know it didn't stop there.
That's it. So as a result of being at that conference, and that's why these conferences are so important. Number one, we met Jeff Bezos, but also a fella came up and he looked at the book and he said, have you ever thought of having that book published in France and Italy? And like, nope, I never thought of that. And he gave me his card. And this is about life lessons, Doc. I was hearing what you were saying. He gave me his business card. So whenever you go to those conferences, collect all the cards. He gave me his business card, and I saw they had a section where publishers and agents, and he was an international agent. Well, I didn't even know there was such a thing. He gave me his card. I put it in there with all the rest of them and forgot about it. 3 months later, I subscribed to Publishers Weekly. And if you're going to be an author, it's good to subscribe to Publishers Weekly. And there's something called IBPO, the Association of Independent Publishers Association. I look on the front page of the Publishers Weekly, and there's this fella, Harry Smith, international agent. Well, I found his card. I called him. We signed the contract, and they represent you. They go around the world to different book shows, book festivals. So he went to the London Book Fair, which is really one of the biggest ones, then the one in Germany, and then the one in Japan. And the end result was we sold the international rights in 7 different countries.
Wow.
And so when you sell international rights, you get money up front.
There you go.
And I don't know, but if you can see it, but this is the 12 Universal Laws of Success in Chinese.
Yes.
And the only thing you can read on here, I think, is my name.
Name.
Yeah. That's about the only thing. Let's see, it's too far. You can't. But that's the only thing I can read in the book. But the book in Chinese, big seller. And so he sold the rights in China, Italy, France, Saudi Arabia, Czechoslovakia. I mean, it went on and on and on. And so I say that you may start off as a small independent publisher, but once you might call it a demonstration of value. Once people start buying your books and you get them out there, and a big part of selling the book is your own personal appearances, Doc. And as you were sharing, building your brand.
Yes.
We found that the big bookstores, Barnes and Noble, those big bookstores, you don't have to wait for somebody to invite you in. You contact them. Say, I'd like to come and do a book signing. They ask you if your book covered by a wholesaler. If it's not, you bring a case yourself. They want people to come in. So we would start doing book signings at the bookstores. We went through all the borders in the Midwest. I did the borders on Thursday, one on Friday, one on Saturday, and we worked that. That created such buzz that the book began to get attention of publishers. And so an agent reached out to me and said, I saw your book, and have you ever thought of having it published by a major publisher? I'm like, I thought about it, but they weren't interested.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm sharing this again. You can have your book and you can still get a publishing deal. Because like I said, when I talked to her, she said 25,000 was big deal. You get we can work you out with another publisher. She shopped the book around, and within the time lag is something that's not exciting, but within about 3 months, we had a deal. And one thing publishers don't like, they don't like to publish a book that has been published under the same title.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And so when we got there with the publisher, we're sitting in New York, Marlowe and Company, we're sitting there, and the guy I see the check on the table. Okay. Now that's what you call motivation.
Big time motivation.
I see the check on the table, and he asked me, he said, would you mind if we change the title of the book? And that was the clinker. Okay. Because they don't want to publish a book under the old title. It creates confusion with the ISBN numbers and all that. And he said, we can do this deal, but we have to publish it under a different title. And looking at the check, I gave the only obvious, intelligent answer: yes, publish that sucker under any title you want. Just give me the check.
Show me the money. Show me the money.
And so that deal became same book, exact same book. They actually enhanced it a little bit. As you said in your presentation, they got some people to help me. They said, well, you need to do a summary, a Q&A session at the end of each chapter. Now, that was not in the original book. And they wanted to get a person to do a blurb for it. And so they went out and got Dr. George Frazier, did the blurb right up top. And this is one of the few books, the only version that I ever had my picture on.
Oh, right. Look at that.
And the reason was, and I think it's changed a bit now, but at that time, that the moment you put your picture on the book, you became a Black author. And that put you in the African-American section of the big bookstores. Mm-hmm. By not putting the picture on the book, and because I was dealing with success, there was no white success and Black success. It was success. So when you read the book, you see some of the acknowledgments. You go like, hey, George Frazier, Reverend Ike, But other than that, the book is totally colorblind.
Right.
When he put the picture on the book, and especially a nonfiction book, it did a little something. It did a little something. But because they were a major publisher, they got the book in places I had not gotten it yet.
Right.
They got it in the business reviews. So it was in the business section.
Yes.
They got it in different areas. So the end result, though, of that was that a major publisher is good. It's a long time lag between the time you sign the deal and the book comes out. But you have to remember, we were one of 230 titles that they published. Mm-hmm. So you didn't get that individual attention. Me being a real pain in the bippy, I was, on them all the time. I need support. Buy me a database, help me with. And so I got some support from them. When you get a deal with the publisher, they want to give you 50 copies. And after that, you got to buy your own books.
Exactly right. And that's the case. You have to learn. And if you fire starters are listening right now, you're hearing Dr. Harris tell you that there are a lot of steps that you will learn in the game as you navigate this publishing scene. And so some of it is going along with agents. Some of it is going along with big time publishers. Some of it is having the ability to accept change and constructive criticism and saying, yeah, this is great, but somebody already used this title. Yes. So we're going to make a little change with it. And as a result, you have utilized all of these things to your advantage to get you where you are today, telling everybody about success. Now, before we start digging into success and what success means and how we get to success, I want to back up a little bit, maybe even way back. And I certainly don't do this with all my guests, but your career pathway is so interesting. And particularly for our audience here, people are thinking about different careers. I want to spend some details in the early on Herbert Harris before the doctor came into play.
Yes.
As you were. So I want to just hear a little bit about what you thought you wanted to do growing up. And then ultimately what led you to Columbia and looking at physics as an example.
Yes. I grew up in the segregated South, and I'll date myself. I was in the high school class of 1961. Okay. So I actually went to school with one of the Greensboro Four. Joseph McNeil was in the class of 59 out of Wilmington, North Carolina. And I was in the class of 1961. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And I got a scholarship to come to Columbia. At that time, the many of the schools were looking for African Americans coming out of the South. In those days, Black kids in the South didn't even take the college boards. we had our own college boards called the merit exams.
Okay.
And so I scored like in the 99 percentile on the merit exam, and to get into Columbia, and they invited me to apply. Coming from the segregated South, my mother was a teacher, my aunt was a teacher. They wanted me to go to get more education. So my aunt sent me to school in the summer. I went to school in the winter, and in the summer, I went to Rhodes Prep School in New York. And it was there that I came to the attention of Columbia. And so one of the messages to all of us is to get out of your comfort zone. There's an African proverb that says that the man who never leaves home thinks his mother is the best cook. And so while I was my aunt was very diligent in sending me out to see the world. While I was at the Rhodes Prep School, the only other Black kid there was Max Roach's daughter, Max the drummer. But I came to the attention of Columbia. They invited me to apply. We had done very, very well there. We took the college boards, first Black person to take the college board in my hometown, and went to Columbia. And so what happened was I skipped the 12th grade. They gave me the scholarship to come after my junior year, and that took me on. But once again, always a self-taught person.
Yeah. So you went off to Columbia, and then you said, all right, well, enough of high school. Let's go to the next level.
Let's go to the next level. And at Columbia, I wanted to study physics. I was motivated when I was, I think, in the 10th grade. I was in a science fair. And in those days, once again, the Black kids had their own science fair. The white kids had their own, but I was in a science fair. And when I won something in one of those science fairs, they had no accommodation for a Black kid running a science fair. But the end result was I had a chance to come and hear a Nobel Prize winner, Dr. James Franck, talk about physics.
Wow.
And I decided then I wanted to be going to physics. When I got to Columbia, I had a chance to work with the physics department there, and I was always good at that. And I actually worked in the beginning of NASA, Dr. Robert Jastrow, who was one of the original physicists. I worked with him while I was at Columbia as an undergraduate assistant. And so that took me through college. Once I got into physics, I worked at the Nevis Cyclotron Laboratory. And to all of us, at some point in your life, you decide that this is not what you want to do.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So this happens to many of us. And in fact, particularly going along the healthcare lines, you study, you train, and then you get out there and start in your career, which may not be exactly what you were looking for out there. So it sounds like you had the same thing in physics. So what did you do?
Exactly. And so I made a decision. I really wanted to pursue music. And I worked at the Nevis Cyclotron Laboratory about a year, and it was upstate New York. I didn't like the accommodations. I took my last check. I bought me a guitar and decided I wanted to become a musician, and started singing and playing in the village era of playing and singing in the coffee shops. But I had one, capitulation. I had no talent. It was a love, but I just did not have any. I was not a good singer. I was a good writer, but I could not sing my own songs.
Right. And so as a result, I'm sure it sounds like another self-taught moment.
Yeah, another self-taught moment. We capitalized, on the music industry. I realized I became more of a manager and a songwriter and a producer. And so that developed a whole era. I worked in the 1650 Broadway with the Isley Brothers, Little Richard, Buddha Records, Phil Spector. Everybody was there.
Yes.
And along the way, just had incredible relationships. But I learned more about the business of music, and that then led me to write the book. My partner and I, he was Lucian Farrar, had been an entertainer, a singer, a writer, and we both had a lot of experience in managing groups, and we wrote the book.
And you hear this, folks? This is a change in career. You go from something as, I'm going to say, rigid as physics, because there's a whole bunch of laws and things that are going on that don't allow any give. Mm-hmm. transferring your gifts and your skills and your abilities into the music industry, which is, full of creativity, fluidity, lots of open bounds. It's almost nothing is out of bounds. It's used for creativity and creative people. And you made that transition all the way to the point where you wrote this book that sparked off yet another career. Absolutely. But that wasn't the end of that. I mean, you had fun with music for a while too, but then you made yet another change.
And yet another change, because as we were writing the book, once I made the change from physics, it's important to listen to your parents. And it wasn't all peaches and cream. And one day my mother said I had hit a point in the music career where we hadn't sold the book yet. Okay, we were still in the process. We hadn't really gotten that together. But a point in my life where stuff just wasn't going right. It just was not going right. The job I had, I didn't like. I mean, I was not. And then I had some serious issues, and I called my mother, and I told my mother I wanted to come home. I was ready to throw in the towel.
Wow.
And my mother said, well, not here. I've already rented your room. We had a college student staying in my room. And so it's terrible when you can't go home. But, in those days, they expected the kids to stay away. When you left home, it was permanent.
That was it. Bye-bye.
You don't have these bounce back kids like you have now. And so my mother suggested I go work with my uncle. She said, call your uncle, see if he'll give you a job. I said, he doesn't even like me. He thought I was too flippant and, irresponsible. He represented Wilt Chamberlain. And when I was in college, once I started writing those ponies, I had more money than I knew what to do with. And so I started being a party animal and hanging out. And my uncle did not like that at all. I crossed paths with him for a minute. And see, he wasn't married. And a couple of times we crossed paths, man, he gave me a hard time. So, and he was one of Wilt Chamberlain's lawyers. And one day he found out I was hanging out with Wilt. Wilt used to own Small's Paradise. And so he was not happy with me, But a lesson to the listeners, sometimes you just have to pull up your big boy pants and take it. My uncle was one of the most verbally abusive. I mean, the names he called me, I can't even say them. They're beyond X-rated. Mm-hmm. But my mother said, you better get a job with him and you better stick to it. And so he didn't even want to hire me. So I said, well, just give me a job doing something. And he gave me a job initially collecting his rents. He owned a lot of property. And the lesson, I think, to all of us is whatever they give you, do it with the best of your ability. I was collecting rent from people who wouldn't pay. The rent collections went up, and it was there. He was a lawyer and a realtor. And it was there I decided to become a lawyer. And I found that there was a New York state law they called the clerkship law, that if you worked in a law office for 4 years under the direction of an attorney, he could then recommend you to take the bar. That's the way Clarence Darrow, everybody talks about Clarence Darrow, and many of the old time attorneys came through that venue.
Yeah.
And so I worked with him 4 years. I took the bar and I didn't pass it the first time, but I learned something then. Don't study the law, study the test.
Right. You spent all your time studying the law. You knew the law like no one else.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's not on the test.
Yeah. Study the test.
And for all you young trainees and all of that, hopefully by now you have learned that, because it still holds true today.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we have all of these tests that get in the way. Some people fumble up on them. I see you making posts out there on Facebook about it. They don't get totally caught up in it. You even heard Dr. Harris. He just said that, hey, he didn't pass it the first time. He made some adjustments. And I bet what happened the second time.
Well, the second time we threw down. Well, let me just say, the second time there were like extraneous circumstances. Okay, So I had to wait. Many times when you miss the cycle, you have to wait until the next time comes around.
Yeah.
And that's where many of us lose our path. If you can't take it in June, you have to wait till February. Okay.
Right.
And so often distractions come. So I got distracted there for a minute, but I made up my mind, and the power of a made up mind. I made up my mind that I was going to take it. I was going to pass it with flying colors. I was going to study the test. So I enrolled in one of those bar review courses. I got the money to be able to be totally devoted to study.
There you go.
You see, that's
and
the
you
thing.
were ready.
That's
you got to learn how to play the game, no matter what. And again, I want to bring this out of everything we've talked about, is that you learn how to play the game in every environment you're in. You said, well, there are some rules. Some of them are written, some of them are unwritten, but you have to play the game. And if you play the game well, you're going to win. And that's what you're showing us. So, So we will get back with Dr. Herbert Harris right after this break.
The time is now to refresh your career. We help doctors, lawyers, executives, and VIPs refresh and restart. Dr. Jarrett's coaching helps you build confidence, gain more credibility, develop more leadership skills, and gain clarity in your career path. Want to climb the executive ladder or branch out on your own? We'll put your career in overdrive. Visit drjarrett.com and sign up for your free strategy session.
Well, we're back, and you guys, I'm serious. Anytime, call me up, hit me up for that strategy session. I love meeting new people. It is fun talking and hearing about the issues you have going on in your life, because we together can come up with a plan that's going to change the trajectory. And that's what we're doing here today with Dr. Herbert Harris. We have him on. He is a #1 best-selling author internationally over the 12 universal laws of success. And we've been learning so many different things from him as far as being able to skillfully transition. You guys have to understand that this man, he didn't graduate high school, but he found his way into an Ivy League college and studied physics and went into physics. And he liked that for a short time. He said, this isn't what it's cracked up to be. Let's switch gears a little bit. We're going to head and do something in the music industry, and became very successful in the music industry. And then he said, you know what? I like learning about stuff. I have some skills already. I've already been working under a lawyer for 4 years. Oh, there's a law that can help me become a lawyer too. All right, well, let's play that game. Let's take the board. Let's see what we can do. And that's exactly what he did. And he ran a law practice for a while. So again, this is a man who knows about success, and he's the author of the 12 universal laws of success. And that's what I want to get into with you now, about some of success. And there's so much in this book. You guys need to check it out for yourselves, because it's going to get you to think differently. It's probably even going to get you to read differently, the way he sets it up in the beginning to help refresh your memory on how to really retain all of these facts, tidbits, and solutions that he has in this book. But Dr. Harris, what does success mean to you, and why was it so important in your develop to spread this message to others?
Well, Dr. Jarrett, once you've been blessed, there's a scripture that says, to whom much is given, much is expected. And that when I look at my life, the trajectory of my life was always based on the choices I made, sometimes good ones, sometimes bad ones. But what we learn is every choice is for a purpose. And so success is a continuous realization of your worthwhile purpose.
Yes.
In the early days, you may not know your purpose. So often our mindset is conditioned by the people who raise us. We may be eagles raised by turkeys, so you get a whole different perspective. And we can't blame the turkeys. We were just blessed to come through that channel. When the good Lord said we were supposed to be born, that's coming down. And so maybe we came through a family of turkeys, people who didn't understand, even people who may have been abusive, people who may have been mean, but we were eagles because God created us to be eagles. And that was our purpose, was to do something good. And so in the early part of the success journey, very often you have to determine who you are.
Yeah.
What you're about. what's your purpose here, and not be defined by other people.
Right. You make your own definition. That's one of the things I love to say. And one of my taglines is, hey, don't let others define you. Make your own definition, because people will be quick to put you in a box. They'll be quick to tell you who you are, what you can do, what you cannot do. And that's what you expect to do. But no, you can make your own definition. I love that saying, Dr. Harris.
Yes. And you see, people define you based on their level of consciousness. So a turkey is going to always tell you that you can't fly. And you come telling a turkey about flying, you're like, I get this feeling inside. I look out off the hill there, and I see a great opening, and I just feel like I could fly over there and see more. And the turkey, man, you better leave that flying stuff alone. Keep scratching around here on the ground like the rest of us. And that's something inside, Doc, and I know you've experienced it, and many of those listening to this program, is there's that voice inside that's telling you that you're a little different.
Yes.
That you're a little unique. Many times we're like the prodigal son. When the prodigal son had wasted all his money and he's laying in the pig pens of life waiting for the pigs it wasn't even his pigs. Okay. He's feeding somebody else's pigs. Okay. And so he's there in the pig pens of life, but he said, my father has food enough and more.
Yes.
And that's that identity that no matter who's around you, no matter what your environment, there's that thing inside that my father created me for a good purpose. And that no matter what my some circumstances, the next thing he says, I will arise. That means you got to take action. It's not enough to know you got a good purpose and know that there's good stuff waiting for you, but you got to act on it.
Yes, absolutely. You must take action, and you must take imperfect action. You can't get caught up in perfection, because perfection will only delay you. It's more important to take an action that may not be perfect than to worry about making the perfect plan and taking no action.
Exactly. And you know what, Doc, I always look at you. You had a nice little section on book editors. And so often as a writer, there's a time when you question your technical skill. Are the commas in the right place? Do I use a semicolon or a comma? And you go through all of those kind of things, and and that can stop you in your tracks.
Yeah, you lose your message. You absolutely lose your message because you get focused on commas and semicolons and forget what you were even trying to prove the point.
Is the sentence too long? Is it a compound sentence? Is it parallel structure? All those things you start. But if you look in the book, if you go any directory and you look up book editors, you can go online right now. Book editors, and a whole slew of them will fall out.
Oh, yes, they will.
Okay. You say, well, why? Say, why is that? Say, because editors are editors. You are a creator.
Yes.
And you got to finish it before anybody can edit it.
That's right.
So even if you finish it badly, you got something to give to an editor. See, an editor has nothing to work with. Unless the editor writes a book, he got nothing to do but wait for somebody else to come along with an idea. But you as a creator,
right?
Yes, you as a creator, go ahead and finish it. Whatever your book, don't worry about your grammar, your spelling. You can run it through Grammarly. Now that's one thing I use a lot. Grammarly.
Yes, Grammarly.
And it's a app on the computer, and it helps you a lot. Eliminate like run-on sentences and incorrect punctuation. So you can run it through Grammarly. That'll give you a big piece of help.
Yeah.
Then you can find an editor. See, what you bring to an editor can make better. You see?
They will absolutely make it better. And and then you look at it after it comes back from them, and you're like, wow, this looks like a real book now.
Yeah. I know the first time when we saw our book in print, the first time, I went to the bookstore and I bought them,
right. I can't believe this is me. I can't believe this is me.
we went down to 59th and it was Coliseum Bookstore on 59th and Broadway. That was like the big bookstore in New York. And to go in there and see it on the shelf, I'm like, whoa. And I didn't want to be like, They'll never believe it. And I brought out, I wrote this. And they looked at me like, yeah, sure you did. Sure you did. Yeah. Credit or cash. That's what you want. So, but the thought of the idea of success being a continuous realization of your purpose, that as a writer, just finish it. Once you finish it, you can pass it off to the next person. As a creative person looking to find, your stride in life. Doc, one of our products that we really market is something called the Success Toolbox. Mm-hmm. And what we found is people need in one place everything to get everything they want, all the tools. And a part of the toolbox is an audio version of the 12 Universal Laws of Success. 6 hours of recorded information. And we put that there because people have different learning styles. Mm-hmm. And so now, very often people will listen to the book and now be motivated to go read it.
Yeah.
And so for all of the authors out there, it's important. It's good to have an audio book because it gives you a whole nother audience to work with. So that was one of the things we put in that Success Toolbox, because we say, look, if you don't want to read, then listen.
Then listen.
Okay.
Right.
then we put in the workbooks. The Bible says, write the vision, make it plain upon tablets.
Yeah.
That he may run that readeth it. And so when you write stuff down, it crystallizes it in your mind. And so we have workbooks there because we realized that when we started teaching success, we realized that many people did not understand the technique for learning. Mm-hmm. When you were preparing for your medical exams, you had to understand the technique for learning and being able to handle the information. And so we go into there's a whole piece in the book called How to Study, to teach people how to study. The SQ 3-hour method, survey the material you're going to learn. Yeah. Set up some questions that the material should answer for you. R1 is to read it.
Yes.
R2 is to review it.
Yes.
And R3 is to recite it so you know you got it.
I told you he's going to tell you how to learn. This is a man that knows about learning. Hey, and I do want to take one more principle, and you put it right up front in chapter 1 when you're talking about the law of thought. And this is something I feel strongly in. And as I've seen it come true more and more in my own life, I try to help direct people. And it's really about the thought and really about manifestation. Mm-hmm. So I want you to tell us what you feel about the power of manifestation, how you can use it in your life and what it will do for you.
Absolutely. Well, underlying is a part of the Einstein special relativity, general relativity. And we've seen the formula E, which is energy, equals M, which is mass or manifestation, times the speed of light squared. So what the formula conceptually is saying that energy and manifestation have a direct relationship. So then manifestation equals the energy divided by the speed of light squared. Energy is your level of desire.
Yes.
It's your level of vibration. Mm-hmm. We often say that no matter what you wanted, and when you have a deep burning desire for something, you generally get it. When you were a young man or a young woman and you wanted that car, or you could think about it, you got it. Yeah. Most of us who've had relationships, somebody loved you enough to come be with you.
Right.
And that person was attracted to you because of the energy, the vibration you're sending out.
Yes.
And so this level of vibration now will attract anything that is congruent with the idea itself. So if the idea, for example, is health, my mindset is good health. I want to be healthy. I want to attract good health. Then what do? I have a desire for good health, but not lip service desire, action desire.
Yes.
So I watch my weight. I get my exercise. I eat properly. I've done all the things now to bring me good health. Yeah. The manifestation comes. The challenge comes as people try to figure out the how. You say, when you have that deep desire, many years ago, Doc, I was on my way to a conference and it was a speaking opportunity and I was not on the program and nobody invited me. I just knew I was going to get there. And man, at the last moment, that moment of doubt crept in, and I started not to go. And I said, you know what? I'm not concerned that I don't have a hotel room. Somebody's going to give me a room. I don't have a concern that I don't have any cash. I'm going to figure something out. All I had was a box of tapes. I had an audio cassette that I was selling. I had a box of tapes. I'm going out there with my tapes. Okay. I didn't know how, but I got out there. And when I got ready to check in the hotel, I went to the hotel and I'm like, man, let's see. They wanted, the credit card, and I guess they want to charge one night. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to figure out, do I have enough on there for $125? Like, man, I hope, I call. In those days, you had to call. You called the 800 number. They had decided to give me a credit line increase of $1,000.
There you
How
go.
could I did not know. I spoke it into existence. But if I had not stepped out on faith with that level of desire, then I'd have had the credit line sitting back at home.
Right. Right. It wouldn't even It just would have been sitting there.
Yeah.
This is the powerful, and this is it, because even when people think that things look so bleak, if you start telling yourself, I'll never get out of this jam, I'll never make enough money, I'll never do this or that, guess what's happening? You're telling that to happen. You're telling that to be true. You got to turn your thinking around and change it to, I can't wait for the day for this to happen, because then it will happen. You're going to put yourself on that positive flow rather than that negative flow. And that's exactly it. You have to step out on faith. It may be a tough situation. It may be hard. You may never have been there before, but you say, you know what? I'm going to get this done. And and you actually did that, not knowing where it was going to come from.
That's it.
But the doors opened up for you.
There's that scripture that says he calls those things that are not as though they were. And that's all a part of that E = MC squared. That when you can visualize and conceptualize something you really want, when that Bible says, write the vision, make it plain, you can't be general. I just want to be happy. Well, what does that mean? Financial happy, social happy, emotional happy. You have to have it in such detail that you can desire and connect with it with such strength that the manifestation takes place. You make the connection, and you don't have to worry about the why. You don't have to worry about the how. You don't have to worry about any of that. You just do it.
Yes.
And once you've stepped out on that faith, then you know that it's going to happen. They says faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So here you are deciding you want to accomplish something great. There's no evidence around you that anything's going to happen good. Okay. All your friends are telling you, stay home, keep your job. You need to get a second job. Forget this flying stuff. Okay. But the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So there's no evidence around, but still, and I say that to our listeners, still that thing inside you says, do it. Step out on faith. Step out ahead. You do that and you cannot fail. You just know that it's going to happen exactly. You don't worry about the how.
Yes. Don't get caught up in the how.
There's another good scripture, and it's the one when Jesus says, if you tell this mountain to be cast into the sea and doubt not, then that which you say will come to pass. And that's another way of saying that it doesn't matter how it looks. If you say you're going to tell a mountain to go into the sea, there's no way that can happen.
Yes. That's
not your issue. Your issue is to believe.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that's what it is. I mean, fire starters, you have to believe. And it's going to be tough out there. It's going to be a tough road. And don't worry about the how. Because if you worry about the how, you're going to doubt. And then you're going to think it's not going to happen. It's going to take you on that path you don't want to go. Just say, okay, I'm stepping out. I'm afraid. And it's there. I mean, I remember, similar story. I took a trip to Mexico. I said, I don't even know if I'm going to eat. I don't know. I don't have anything set up. I don't know what's going to happen when I get here. But you know what? I didn't worry about that. And things made a way. Things came together. And you look back on times like that and you incorporate that ability to walk out in faith every day in your life, it'll reap huge dividends and rewards. And that's why it will manifest. And that's exactly why you have that as one of the principles to really know up front. And there are so many more in your book, Dr. Harris. I mean, I would spend the entire rest of the program talking with you. We could talk all day long with the stories. I thank you for being on this podcast, but I want people to know where they can find out more about you.
Absolutely. Our website, herbertharris.com, www.herbertharris.com. And you see information about the book. You'll see a big blurb about the Success Toolbox that we've really been promoting to help you transform. One of the issues that we look at, and I think all of our listeners will realize this, that there's a process to assess where you are, be honest with yourself, look at your strengths and weaknesses, to address those things. If you don't acknowledge it, you can't fix it. To set some new goals. Your goals are always based on the frame of reference and your level of consciousness. The moment you eliminate some of that negativity, you have another level of consciousness. Now set new goals and then step forward to get busy, to really work at it. The Bible says, whatsoever your hand findeth to do, do it with all your might. When you can do that, then truly nothing is impossible. The level of your desire will match up with the level of your activity. Sometimes if things are not happening the way you want them to happen in your life, maybe you're not dreaming big enough. Maybe you're walking to the ocean with a cup. Yes. So be sure to visit our website, herbertharris.com, and check out the Success Toolbox.
Excellent. Well, check out the Success Toolbox. Check out the 12 Universal Laws of Success. Check out more and interact with Dr. Herbert Harris. It's been just an enjoyable time to have you on. And I'll just call this episode Success Talks with Dr. Herbert Harris. If you don't mind me biting off your name, because this is what it is about. It's about Success Talks. And we love that you're here. So thank you for being on the show.
Thanks so much, Doc. You keep up your good work, and all the listeners, it's a blessing to be here. Appreciate it and work with it.
Thank you very much. And remember, fire starters, if you or anyone you know has been dissed in their career, please invite them to join us along this journey. Just go to your favorite podcast player and subscribe to License to Live. And while you're there, rate this episode. Let us know what you want to hear about, because I know Dr. Harris dropped some gems on you today. And in between episodes, check us out anywhere on social media, especially on LinkedIn, at Dr. Jarrett. Spell out the word Dr. J-A, 2 R's, E, 1 T, and we will see you next time.
No matter how disheartening the moment of accusation sounds, how deep the pain of immobilization stabs, or how bleak your future looks, no one can take away your license to live. Keep Dr. Jarrett's expertise handy and unlock your future. Go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or another podcast player and subscribe right now to Licensed to Live. See you next time.